Season 2 of Dr. Stone is only 2 months away, and right now is the perfect time to catch up. But maybe you don't want to watch Season 1, and let me just stop you right there. In this here kingdom, we don't skip parts, we don't skip OPs, and we certainly don't skip science. But I too was a kid once, and I know kids like to skip things these days. So I'd rather you skip at home with me where you won't miss anything important. And hey, maybe you already watched Season 1, but you just want a quick refresher. Either way, this is just the video for you. Before I get started, make sure to comment with your thoughts on Seasons 1 and 2. I'll pick my favorite and share it as comment of the week in the next video. This week's comment comes from Insane Makayoshin. Thank you for your take on the clans of Wano. Also, just as a heads up, there will not be a video on November 26th or December 10th. Unfortunately, I won't be able to upload those weeks because of my finals. But if you'd like regular One Piece and Dr. Stone videos like this one, then make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can follow along with each week's video. With that out of the way, let's look at the prologue saga. To keep things in chronological order, we'll start with the very beginning. Our main character, Ishigami SENKU, is a boy genius from Japan with a strong sense of curiosity. His interest in the world around him eventually motivates his dream of going to space. And not like 20 years from now, he wants to go today. So, SENKU reads up on all the science he can find. As he learns, SENKU slowly begins applying the science and experimenting. But, like any gamer knows, if you spend all your skill points on one talent, you're gonna suck at just about everything else. So, while SENKU is wicked smart, he lacks any sign of strength or athleticism. Fortunately, he comes across his soon-to-be best friend, Taiju, and Taiju is the textbook definition of a meathead. He's strong as a bull, but boy, is he dumb. Luckily, he and SENKU hit it off right away, and the two of them make a perfect duo. But SENKU and Taiju aren't the only ones trying to go to space. SENKU's adoptive father, Byakuya, is a college professor with his own dreams of going to space. Oh, and by the way, he sold his car so he could buy SENKU lab equipment for Christmas. So yeah, best dad in anime. Anyway, after some help from SENKU and Taiju, Byakuya passes the tests and officially becomes an astronaut. Fast forward a few years later and Yuzuriha enters the scene. While SENKU does the thinking and Taiju does the lifting, Yuzuriha is in charge of all the crafts. Also, she and Taiju are basically the perfect couple, but just haven't told each other yet. Taiju tried to confess his feelings, but a mysterious light turned every human and swallow on Earth into stone. Meanwhile, Byakuya manages to survive inside the International Space Station. With him are Daria, Yakov, and Shamil, 3 Russian astronauts, Connie, an American astronaut, and Lillian, a world-famous American singer visiting the ISS as a special guest. The space team realizes what happens on Earth, so they decide to go back and restart civilization. Byakuya wants the next generations to be ready for SENKU, so he puts valuable knowledge together in story form. The 100 Tales, as they're called, serve as common heritage for the generations to come. Fast forward 3,700 years and SENKU finally breaks from his petrification. After careful research, SENKU realizes that people can be revived with nitric acid. Actually, he learns that you also need energy to revive someone. In SENKU's case, this energy came from his brain while he stayed conscious all those years. Luckily, Taiju also stayed conscious, so SENKU is able to revive him. Now, to solve the energy problem, SENKU and Taiju begin making wine so they can turn their nitric acid into nitol. Unfortunately, when they go to revive Yuzuriha, the duo is attacked by lions. To survive, SENKU and Taiju revive the strongest primate high schooler, Tsukasa. How strong is Tsukasa? Well, 3,700 years ago, he was an undefeated MMA fighter. So, after killing a lion by literally punching it in the face, Tsukasa becomes the next team member. But Tsukasa reveals a great distaste for the disparities of the modern age. To prevent their return, Tsukasa plans on killing the petrified adults and starting his own utopia. Realizing just how stupid that is, SENKU revives Yuzuriha and escapes with her and Taiju. But Tsukasa follows them, takes Yuzuriha hostage, demands SENKU reveal the revival formula, and tells him to give up on science. SENKU reveals the formula but refuses to give up science. so Tsukasa kills him by breaking his neck. But since the revival fluid fixes injuries, Taiju uses it to fix Senku's neck before he actually dies. Realizing the revival fluid's full potential, Senku gives Yuzuriha a secret mission that seems to be linked to fixing the broken statues. Senku also tells her and Taiju to spy on Tsukasa while he builds his army. So, Taiju and Yuzuriha return to the cave, and Senku leaves to go build a kingdom of science. And that brings us to the Ishigami Village saga. Actually, this saga technically started after Tsukasa killed Senku, but that's stupid and this is my video. Anyway, on his way to the cave, Tsukasa is attacked by Kohaku. When the fight ends and Kohaku is trapped, Senku saves her by using pulleys. Impressed with his diligence, Kohaku thanks Senku by taking him back to her village. On the way, she grabs spring water for her sister, who is apparently very sick. When they finally arrive, Senku is amazed to learn that there is an entire village that knows nothing about the modern age. Kohaku also explains that there are 40 people who live in the village, and for the most part they are all named after stones and other things you can find in nature. You have Kohaku, her sister Ruri, the village priestess, their father Kokio, who happens to be the chief, Kinro and Ginro, who guard the village, Jasper and Turquoise, who work directly for Kokio, Suika and her cute dog Chalk, and then Kaseki, the village blacksmith, who has a habit of shredding off his clothes. Obviously, that's only a chunk of the characters, so you can use this list found in chapter 17 of the manga to see the rest. You can also use this diagram at the end of chapter 17 to see how some of the villagers are related. Now, when Senku tries to enter the village, he's stopped by Kinro and Ginro, who explain that outsiders are forbidden from entering. He's then confronted by Chrome, who claims to be a sorcerer, but after quickly putting Chrome in his place, it's made clear that this sorcery is really just basic science. Still, Senku is amazed to find someone in the village so interested in science. Senku is also impressed by Chrome when he explains that he studies sorcery, as he calls it, so he can cure Kohaku's sister Ruri. So, Senku tells Chrome all about the modern age, and Chrome decides to join Senku and help rebuild civilization. At this point, Senku explains to Chrome and Kohaku that they can cure Ruri's sickness by making sulfa drugs. This way, they can cure the village priestess, and Senku can recruit the entire village to his kingdom of science. From this point, Senku and his team work towards the sulfa drugs step by step, slowly adding one invention after another to their collection. At the same time, they also use these inventions to help the villagers with the wonders of modern science. For example, to recruit laborers for making iron, Senku starts selling ramen in exchange for work. But this is when a mysterious stranger mentions that ramen goes great with cola. Senku soon recognizes the stranger as Asagiri Gen, a mentalist from the modern age. Gen reveals that he's a spy for Tsukasa and is on a mission to confirm Senku's death. When Senku amazes Gen by showing him what the Kingdom of Science is capable of, Gen decides to help Senku by falsely confirming Senku's death to Tsukasa. Essentially, this buys Senku time to work on the sulfa drugs without having to worry about an invading army. Soon after, the villagers host the Grand Bout, a tournament held to decide who marries the priestess and becomes chief. Magma, the strongest of the villagers, plans on marrying Ruri, but only because he wants to gain power. The villagers also explain to Senku that the Grand Bout is followed by a ceremony where there will be lots of wine. Funny enough, Senku just so happens to need alcohol for the sulfa drugs. So, to stop Magma and get alcohol, the Kingdom of Science enters the Grand Bout. In a bizarre twist of events, Senku comes out as the winner and becomes the next chief of the village. He also divorces Ruri after marrying her for like, I don't know, 2 seconds. But with his precious alcohol, Senku finally completes the sulfa drug. Senku then gives the drug to Ruri, who is finally cured of her sickness. Kokio officially declares Senku village chief, but Senku is surprised to learn the village is named Ishigami Village. At this point, Ruri explains the meaning behind the 100 Tales, and Senku realizes that everything in the village was a gift to him from Byakuya. And so, the Ishigami Village saga ends with Senku thanking Byakuya for everything he did for him. Finally, we come to the Stone War saga. To begin, Gen reveals that Tsukasa is sending soldiers to attack Ishigami Village. Their leader, Hyuga, is a ruthless warrior who fights with a Kudayari spear. Hyuga isn't naturally strong, but when he has his spear, his fighting prowess rivals even Tsukasa. Now, the first time Hyuga's group attacks, SENKU scares them away by pretending to have guns. Hyuga's group comes back later, but this time all the villagers are armed with katana. Hyuga begins to attack, but soon realizes that Gen betrayed him and broke his spear. When Hyuga and his group are trapped, he watches his soldiers die without the least bit of remorse. Something you should keep in mind when contrasting Hyuga to Tsukasa. Before he leaves, Hyuga tells his right hand, Homura, to stay behind and spy on the village. Now, having repelled Hyuga, SENKU decides the best strategy against Tsukasa is to build a cell phone. This way, the Kingdom of Science will have the upper hand in terms of communication and real-time strategy. So, the Kingdom of Science quickly begins upgrading their tech, putting in tons of work until they finally build their cell phone. At this point, SENKU learns that Byakuya's gravestone contains a record from Lillian. SENKU modifies the cell phone into a record player, and the Kingdom of Science is blessed by a song from one of the greatest singers of the modern age. And that is where Season 1 ends. Over the course of 2 long years, SENKU builds a Kingdom of Science filled with modern innovations. Meanwhile, Tsukasa builds an empire of power filled with the strongest warriors he can find. To begin their assault, the Kingdom of Science needs to capture Homura and finally reconnect with Taiju and Yuzuriha. With that, you officially know everything there is to know before Stone Wars. And that's it for this discussion. Reminder that there are no videos November 26th or December 10th. If you enjoyed this discussion, then make sure to like the video. If you'd like more videos like this one, then make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for weekly One Piece and Dr. Stone videos. Thank you for watching, and I hope to hear from you soon.